I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I'm a musician and passionate music lover, and I wanted to delve deeper into new music in the independent scene around the world. I also saw this as a chance to help artists connect and share their stories, so if there's someone you hear and you want to find out more about, every podcast has links in the show description. Get involved, help this community grow, follow on the 10,000 Hours of Indie socials, you can find all the links in the show description. And also feel free to email me about anything music related, 10,000indie@gmail.com. I'm open to any ideas and love listening to your promos. The Book of Moons is this episode's featured artist. A debut album by the duo of Tim Lane and Leighton Melville entitled Strange and Wild Magic was released at the end of May. It has that proper 70s prog vibe while maintaining a freshness and modern touch with a hint of folk to boot. Maybe Canterbury scene prog would have been a suitable outlet for this had it been released 50 years ago. This album delves into themes of ghosts, vampires, strange creatures and ancient magic, and it's been on my regular cycle of music since I first heard it. I chased down Tim from the duo to discuss the album, his many, many other musical projects and more. Hi Tim, welcome to the 10,000 Hours of Indie podcast.
Hi Daniel, pleased to be here. Thank you for having me.
Great to have you. So, judging from your Bandcamp, you could have probably made another album in the time this interview will take, so apologies for the distraction.
That's all right. Funny enough, currently I'm working on some music for a play. No, actually, I'm glad of the distraction at the moment because it's driving me potty.
That's a very different style of music to be writing.
Oh, yes, it certainly is. Yeah.
So first up, what inspired the themes of the album?
I've got really broad interest in music, but one of the things that I've always really liked, when I got into folk music in the early 80s, the songs that I really liked were the kind of quite dark folk songs. You know, the ones, things like Tom of Bedlam and stuff like that, where the kind of folk horror element that's always been there in folk music. So it's kind of partially that. It's partially the fact that both Leighton and I share an interest in things like H.P. Lovecraft and all that kind of stuff, like kind of strange magic and that kind of thing. And, I also really like that element of, actually, I like all of Zeppelin's work, but like that element in people, bands like Led Zeppelin and Jethro Tull and that kind of thing. So that's really where all the inspiration came from. But it was stuff that was written over probably about 2 or 3 years. That, if I'm honest, it started. I think the first one was the song Shadow Song, which Leighton and I did with, and still do with the Punch House Band. They're a very stripped down version. Punch House Band is my folk band as opposed to that thing, who actually play gigs. So it kind of started with that, and then I got interested in doing more stuff along those lines.
I've got a sort of sub-question. Did the world need more dystopian world-themed music?
Obviously, the world needs that. You've got to have. I don't know if it's particularly dystopian, Dan. It's dark because it's in folk songs. It's stuff. We like those stories. We like those dark stories. If you look at Grimm's Tales kind of thing, actually, if you look at the original Grimm's Tales, and not any kind of Disneyfied version of it, they're pretty dark. They're
really nasty. Yeah.
So we like a bit of scary, a bit of strange. I think most people like that. I grew up reading fantasy literature and stuff like that. So that's going to kind of feed into that as well.
Why did this become its own separate project when you already have so many others?
Because it was a thing on its own. The Punch House Band is just like my work, kind of my day job, my working band is ultimately a folk band. I wanted to do that kind of folk rock stuff, but it was stuff with kind of arrangements that was never going to happen with, not these because we haven't got a drummer in the Punch House Band. It's a kind of way of marrying some of those things that I did with the Punch House Band to stuff that I do with bands like, I don't know if my prog band Stealing the Fire or all the other things. And in a way, because I'm not on a record label or anything like that, I can make each project what I want it to be. I'm not going to get rich doing this, so I can make a thing put that thing out as it is, and if it goes somewhere, it goes somewhere. But I'm turned 61 this year, so I'm not expecting to like be on the cover of Mojo magazine anytime soon. Well, actually, I'm about the right age for that, actually, aren't I? But I'm not expecting to be like a mega star or anything like that. I just want to get my music out there, and I like doing that. So it's clear. I put everything out as me. It would be bewildering. They're all different things, aren't they?
Obviously, I do know your other bands because I do extensively research every guest. However, that leads me into the next question. It's been a little bit challenging to find out much information about the credits for this album, except for Chris Bond production. Was it really just the two of you, or did you have some other musicians like a drummer involved?
I had my pal who I've been in bands with since the 80s, maybe even the night. My friend Tim Dew played the drums for it. But I did all the other stuff, and Leighton did all the singing, and like Chris did the did the production work.
Sorry, I was just going to say I would have been very impressed, but slightly depressed at the same time if you had said no, it was all programmed drums.
No. Got my buddy to help me out with that. I mean, originally for the demo, I gave him demos of stuff that I programmed, but he played it. And very good he is too.
Oh, it sounds fantastic. I think the drums really stand out and they highlight the right parts of the track. Sometimes you just get drummers who just want to play everything pretty standard and it gets a bit boring, but he certainly knows his way round a good prog song.
Well, he certainly does. And also he knows to do what he's told.
That always helps. So This project, Ubermodo, the Punch House Band, Stealing the Fire, and Tim Lane, which is your solo stuff. Am I missing anything?
Well, I have got other stuff out there. But like this is from years ago. Like I kind of like one of the early things that I did with Tim, the drummer for this project, was like a comedy rock band called Doom Weasel, which I think that album is on my Bandcamp page. But I don't know if I've never got round to actually bothering to put that up on all the streaming platforms and stuff like that. I wish everything would work on Bandcamp. Like it did everything else. So I didn't have to have anything to do with like Amazon and Spotify and stuff. But no, I'm like that. That's plenty. I'm like I've got other bands that I've been in. I've played in all kinds of bands, Dan, over the years. I'm an old hack in that respect. But like I've got really broad taste in music. But also, like that, which is great because that feeds into like particularly if I'm interested in progressive music. I think really good progressive music draws from all kinds of influences. It's not you don't just draw from prog bands. But yeah,
although I could certainly hear the Jethro Tull influence in the album. As soon as you mentioned it, I was kind of expecting that to come in somewhere.
Yeah, I love them, but I'm not a huge. They're not one of the bands that I always got them, but I do like that rock folk crossover thing. He's an extraordinary bloke, isn't he? I'm like, how does he keep going? It's like, and he's still doing good stuff even now.
Your Bandcamp looks pretty epic compared to most artists and bands. It just goes on and on and on. There's about 4 pages worth of albums there.
Well, like I said, I put stuff up. I make things. I tend to think of things in terms of albums. I'm never going to get a record deal. I'm reasonably confident that I make good music, but I'm not particularly worried about conquering the world with it. I want to get it out there. So, like, there it is. So when I've got enough stuff to make an album, or if I have an idea for a thing, then Bandcamp is great. I'm like, Bandcamp's great for anybody. I'm like, as a way to get stuff out. I noticed that I've bought stuff from bands that I really, quite established bands that I really admire, who put it up on Bandcamp because it's a better deal for them. And that's fabulous. Wild Hearts was one that I bought recently, and Frost. They've had lots of stuff up. I recommend Bandcamp to anyone who makes stuff, and they want to get it out there and they want people to hear it because people do listen to it. You have to do a certain amount of bit of like reposting and putting it up on social media, but people listen, people follow those links. Then that's there forever. You've made that musical statement. You haven't just played it down the pub a couple of times and then it's gone forever. Which when I first started doing music, I presumed it's the same for you. Was it? You wrote a song. As soon as you stopped singing it live, then that song was dead. It was never going to be heard again. So now I put it out there. I'm like, there are things now. I've left everything on my Bandcamp page, even if it's stuff that like now I look back and I think, I don't know about that because it's stuff that I've made and it's there. And if people want to listen to it, they can listen to it. If they don't want to, they can not listen to it.
The thing is, it's a good mark of progression for people to look back at what you were doing and to see how you got to where you are now as well.
Well, absolutely, if they care. And also, it gives people an idea that I'm not just one thing. I have got like massively wide interests. And I write stuff for theatre and that kind of thing. And that's kind of different. That doesn't go out there because some of it has. Having said that, there are bits and pieces from Anglian Mist, but most of it doesn't go into that because they're not album releases or that kind of thing. But I think it does give people an idea of what I'm doing, and like I said, and they can take it or leave it.
So you're very prolific in terms of releasing music with your various projects. Why do you think that is? Is it just that you've got to get it out your system, or is it that you enjoy the creative process so much, or something else?
I really enjoy writing and recording music. Well, I really enjoy playing music live. And actually, I got my first computer in 2000, and I started off, I had an early version of Reason. I started off doing electronic things, actually, because I had no idea how to do stuff. But I'd been recording things with Chris Bond on his Atari that he had at the time. And then around about, 2011, I understood what I was doing with things like Keybase and stuff like that. And then I realised that actually this is fabulous. Instead of, I don't play video games or stuff like that. I've got like a couple of hours to waste. I'll come and write some music because that's what I enjoy doing. I like making music. And I've always played guitar and stuff like that, so I'm always writing stuff. One of those things that like really I can't not do. I'm always humming things, or like things give me ideas, or I've got to write something. I've said I'll write some songs for a show. It's there. I think if you want to make stuff, whether it's songwriting or painting or making cabinets, if you want to do it, if you've got that in you, you're going to do it. And I think all people really want to make things. I think it's one of the things that makes us human is that business of being creative, making a thing, not because it's a thing that we need, because it's a thing that is nice. There's a better word than nice, but a thing that like makes us happy. Maybe, if we share it, it'll make other people happy. I've never not made music since I picked up a guitar. I've always made stuff up. And actually what technology has given me, and I think what it has given lots of other people, is all the limitations that might have been there before. And I thought, oh God, I really want to make a rock band track. Then I would, back in the 80s, I'd have had to have been bloody sight better at playing than I was. And B, I'd have had to have found other musicians who are also up to like making that thing happen. Like now, I know people, and also the rest of it I can do myself. It's great. And a lot of that is because technology has enabled it.
Are there any plans to play some live shows with this project, or would it just be too much to get together?
I'm not going to say absolutely never, but I think it's highly unlikely. The other thing is I'm 61, about to start a degree in September, so that's going to cut into my time. So probably not. Punch House Band will keep working. We're playing at Folk East next month, which would be really nice. As a folk festival in Suffolk in the UK. Those days of being in rehearsal rooms and working through stuff, I feel like actually if I'm ever going to do that, then that needs to be something that I get paid for, and the musicians I'm working with get paid for to do it actually professionally. So like you spend your days doing it rather than going to work all day and then doing it in the evening.
I always have a good trawl through everything I can find on artists' socials and YouTube. And I discovered many Tim Lanes. Were you aware there's so many musicians with the same name?
Oh, yeah, particularly there's a proper musician up in Scotland, like a percussionist who's really fabulous. Like, luckily, he hasn't sued me yet, but like, what can you do?
I also discovered your Christmas song, Turn on the Lights.
Oh, yeah, did you like that?
I did. I feel everyone should have at least one festive song in their repertoire.
Absolutely. I was really, I don't know what made me write. I've done 2 or 3 Christmas songs. That's probably the only serious one. There's another one on my Bandcamp page somewhere called Zombie Apocalypse Christmas. And there's one called Psycho Santa. I'm all right with comedy. Yeah, I'm actually really pleased with Turn on the Light. I'm glad that you found that.
Trust me, I trawl. I do trawl a lot. So what's coming up with your many musical projects? You say you've got a festival show next month with your folk band. Yes,
we're playing at Folk East with the Punch House Band. We've got gigs going along with that. And I think sometime in September, October, we're actually going to do a Punch House Band album, like that proper album where I'm not playing everything except the drums. So that'll be good. And that's with Leighton. Because I've known Leighton forever, and like doing stuff with him is just brilliant. And then my next really big thing is I've I've written a pantomime. It's a folk pantomime based on, well, it's The Babes in the Wood, which I don't know if you know, is not actually a Norfolk story. It happened in Wayland Wood, which is near Watton. Yeah, for which I'll be writing songs. I've kind of done 1.5 at the moment. I've got a lot of work to do in the next month or so. And also the other thing is, like, I've actually, with Stealing the Fire, I've got 2 full prog albums. They're kind of ready to go. It's getting 3 of us together. We're kind of like on the business of like doing the vocals for those. We've got one which will be called Roadmaps and Rituals, which hopefully will be out in the autumn. All the music is done. Some of the vocals are done. Saffron, who sings in that band, is also like a working performer and lots of other things. So like, it's this whole business of like making everybody fit together. But like, that's looking good. And then I've got another one with them that again is all written. We're largely done. We just need to get the vocals on, which is we haven't got a title for. But the theme for that one, it being progressive rock, is like classic science fiction. So there's a track called Nautilus Rising, which is like obviously inspired by Jules Verne, and 2 tracks that are kind of linked about Frankenstein, and one that's based on I don't write the lyrics for this, by the way. This is Chris Bond who does that. But another one that's based on a Conan Doyle story from the early 1900s about flying too high and there being all kinds of stuff living above the clouds and that kind of thing. Before obviously anyone knew that actually there's nothing above the clouds except nothing.
There's a whole bunch of satellites up there now.
Well, there is. There's a lot of metal work there now, isn't there? That's probably like the next things that I'm going to, in terms of recording, like Stealing the Fire things. I'm always writing.
So the final proper question: what music are you listening to at the moment that people may not be aware of and should take some time to check out?
Oh man, there's stuff that I've always loved that like is deeply influential, like Robin Hitchcock. Anything to do with him, the Soft Boys, Robin Hitchcock and the Egyptians, all that kind of stuff, like strange psychedelic stuff. Practically all prog music. I love that. I've been listening to a lot of Martin Carthy recently because I like it, not because I can ever even think of playing like that. I kind of like find myself dipping in and out of things that I used to love when I was a kid and then I'd forgotten about, and then it comes back. I like I'll look back on Richie Blackmore's Rainbow. I really love that. The soundtrack to 28 Years Later, I particularly liked.
It wasn't a compilation, it was a classical score, was it?
It's not classical. The band is called Young Fathers. I particularly got into it because the opening track is a very in-your-face setting of a Rudyard Kipling poem. It's extraordinary. I thought, oh, that's fantastic. How did you come up with that?
So for anyone wishing to find out more, what socials are you on? I know you're on, obviously, Bandcamp's where to find your music, and you're quite active on Facebook in terms of posting new material when it comes up.
That's kind of it. To be honest, I used to do Twitter with all my bands and stuff, but like when that became X and it became a sink of hate and nastiness, I got out of that. Because Instagram and WhatsApp and stuff like that inevitably involve having to use your phone to do stuff. I'm just too old, Daniel. My thumbs don't. I haven't got that thumb thing. There's stuff on YouTube of all my things. Everything that I put up on Spotify, Amazon, iTunes, all the major streaming platforms. Then you can hear the music on them, and you hear it for free on YouTube if you don't mind the adverts, which is the same for all of them, I suppose. But largely look up Tim Lane Music, The Book of Moons, Ubermodo. They're the ones that I really maintain, and Stealing the Fire on Facebook. I generally get around to linking stuff. I'm the world's worst person at promoting myself.
Strange and Wild Magic, which are spelt WYLDE and MAJICK by The Book of Moons, is available now on Bandcamp and all/most streaming platforms. Tim, thanks for joining me on the 10,000 Hours of Indie podcast.
Mate, it's been a pleasure.
And I'll probably speak to you next week when the next album's out.
Bless you.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Daniel.